Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK.
Here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Thursday, the 4th of January. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So, dark break for Luke Littler, but a huge congratulations to fellow Brit Luke Humphries, who will be joining us this morning after he beat the pressure cooker environment and walked away with £500,000, despite the crowd not being on his side. How did he do it? We'll find out.
Can't wait for that. The Epstein files, Prince Andrew has been named in newly released court documents detailing connections of the late paedophile sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker, he has more.
Yeah, Prince Andrew's not the only one. Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, among other famous names in these so-called Epstein files. But will this cause further embarrassments to the royal family? Find out shortly.
And Starmer's strategy. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will set out his election stall this morning, telling you that his party will end your despair. Do you think he will? You'll have to watch it here to find out and to hear what we think.
Stale speech to Reform UK leader Richard Tice set out the party's policies yesterday, but did he fail to inspire the public? Their newly announced candidate in Wellingborough by-election, Ben Habib, joins us.
And fat cat pay. Bosses of Britain's biggest companies will earn more by 1 p.m. today than the typical worker will earn all year. Hard work should surely be rewarded, but has the gap between the haves and the have-nots completely rolled out of control? Let us know your thoughts this morning, won't you? Did you watch the darts?
I caught a bit of it.
Yes.
Which is about as much as I was ever going to watch. But actually, I'm not completely disappointed that Luke the younger.
Yeah, Luke
win.
the Littler.
Or Luke the Littler, because I think the other guy had been around a long time,
yeah.
and he was the best man on the night.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking to him. Luke Humphries, I'm very excited about this. I did manage to watch the first darts match I've ever watched. I don't mind admitting that. And it was just superb. But how did he cope in that environment? Let us know what you thought if you saw it. GB Views at gbnews.com. And how excited are you, Andrew, about Keir Starmer's speech?
On a scale of 1 to 10, probably about 1.5, because I suspect he will not flesh out the bones on what he's going to do. Is he going to tax us more? How's he going to spend for all these green... How's he going to raise the money for the green policies? I suspect it to be warm words and platitudes. And I think we heard a few of those yesterday from the leader of Reform UK.
Yeah, Richard Tice. And we're going to be talking to Ben Habib. So don't go anywhere. So much to get through between now and midday. Let us know your thoughts. gbviews at gbnews.com is the email. First, though, with your very latest news headlines, here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. Prince Andrew, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, just some of those named in US court documents detailing connections of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The documents named dozens of Epstein's associates, although many of them are not accused of any wrongdoing. They include references to Joanna Sjoberg, who's claimed the Duke of York touched her inappropriately while sitting on a couch inside Epstein's Manhattan apartment in 2001. It's all part of a 2015 defamation case made by Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell, an associate of Epstein. A man has been arrested and remains in custody after multiple gunshots were fired in Liverpool last night. A major incident was declared as armed officers launched a manhunt. A 49-year-old was arrested on suspicion of possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life and robbery. Merseyside police said it received reports of shots coming from a shop and further incidents outside a cinema and nearby property in the Croxteth and Norris Green areas of the city. No one was injured in any of the incidents. More than 20 requests have been made by hospitals in England for striking junior doctors to return to work due to extreme pressure and patient safety fears. The 6-day walkout, the longest in NHS history, began yesterday in a long-running dispute over pay. None of the requests have been granted so far. The British Medical Association has accused NHS bosses of bowing to political pressure, undermining the strikes. It says the process of doctors returning to work due to unexpected and extreme circumstances is at risk of collapse because NHS bosses are failing to follow it. The number of people putting their homes up for sale hit a record high on Boxing Day. Property website Rightmove said just over 10,000 new properties came onto the market, the biggest number of people selling since 2011. The number of buyers contacting estate agents about homes for sale also jumped and was 17% higher than Boxing Day in 2022. And Luke Littler says he has what it takes to return to win the World Championship in the future after he was denied a fairy tale victory last night. The teenage dart sensation missed out on that historic win after losing to the new world #1 Luke Humphries, who beat him 7-4. It's a landmark success for Humphries, who's now won 4 of the last 5 major tournaments. Littler said the last few weeks are beyond what he imagined.
I just wanted to win one game, come back after Christmas, and that was it. That's the only goals I set, so this is just a massive bonus. No one likes losing, and I've not really lost much, but to lose on that stage, you can't be angry at yourself.
You can get more on all of those stories by visiting our website, gbnews.com. Now back to Andrew and Bev.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Well, he's the Labour leader, Keir Starmer. It's his big turn today. We had Reform Party yesterday, the Lib Dems, with a fabulous new exciting poster, which I've already forgotten what it says. But Keir Starmer...
Kick Rishi out, move him out, something like that.
I'm the removal man, he says in his white van. Keir Starmer is going to make a major speech this morning, and he's going to pledge to bring hope to what he calls an exhausted Britain and rid himself of connections. I don't know about that. In his speech, he's going to say...
Well, he's going to say that his party is no longer a party of gesture politics and accuse the Prime Minister of pointless populism, pointless populist gimmicks.
He's also going to put blue water or red water between him and the former Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Tricky when he served in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet for 4 years, when dozens of shadow ministers resigned from Corbyn's shadow cabinet because Corbyn was so awful, Starmer stuck it out.
The thing is, I think the British public, if we're not careful, are going to get election fatigue.
Yeah.
If they all start... If we don't have an election till November, October, November, I think that you at home are going to start zoning out on people like Keir Starmer if they start coming out now pitching for your vote. But it might be May. And so maybe he's got very little time to pitch for your vote. But I'm not sure there's an awful lot that he can say right now that would appeal to your core Labour voter. Who are they going to vote for? And he needs to steal some people from the Conservatives who are fed up of how it feels the country at the moment is a bit depressed. It's interesting that he chose the word exhausted. I think that's how a lot of people do feel.
We've had, in May or June or whatever it is, the Tories were in power for 14 years. That's a very long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are fed up. And are they doing a good job?
Yeah.
Not terribly. Look at the polls.
There's a rumour that he's going to talk about Labour offering tax cuts, which...
How are they going to pay for them?
Quite. And we'll see how he comes across personally, of course, because we've said it time and time again on this show that, unfortunately, he doesn't really set the nation alight, does he?
He sounds like a robot, and that's a disadvantage in an increasingly presidential era where people look to... I mean, Blair had oodles of charisma, whether you agreed with him or not. He was incredibly exciting in 1997, and he won by a landslide, and he's no Blair, is he?
No, not at all. But let us know your thoughts this morning. We will be taking that speech in about an hour or so, I think it is. It might be a little bit after that, but lots more as well to get through this morning. Oh, sorry, I'm kicking onto the desk.
Because Prince Andrew is back in the headlines just days after he appeared alongside the King and other senior members of the royal family at Sandringham, Christmas Day, because he has, as been expected, named in those US court documents detailing connections of the late sex offender, the paedophile, that's what he was, Jeffrey Epstein.
So Ghislaine Maxwell told her lawyers that she was worried about being questioned over her relationship with Prince Andrew.
Others named in the files are Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. They've been named in court documents. Neither of them, however, have been accused of doing anything illegal.
So we're going to be talking now to, of course, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker to see what impact this might have on the royal family. Good morning, Cameron. Good morning. No real surprise that Prince Andrew is in here, but what else have we learned that might be damaging to him?
As you say, no real surprise. There's no major bombshell I can see at this stage to do with Prince Andrew. But the difference is we've heard Prince Andrew named in these court files via lots of newspaper publications over the last 6-7 years. The difference now is that all of these allegations are in sworn testimony in court documents, which is a whole nother level. So I suppose the main allegations, one of which is from a girl called Miss Schoberg, and she alleges that Prince Andrew touched her breasts while posing with his spitting image puppet in Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion in 2001. Now, this had come out in media beforehand, which is one of the reasons why the judge decided to release these documents into the public domain. But, of course, it's now in sworn testimony from this
Which
woman.
gives it another level of validity and veracity, doesn't it? And she was 20 at the time, I think.
Yeah, she was very, very young. Virginia Giuffre, Prince Andrew's sex accuser, was also there. Prince Andrew has always denied the allegations that Miss Giuffre alleges against him. He also, in the now infamous Newsnight interview, claims he never actually met Virginia Giuffre.
And in this court document, this woman, Schoberg, Miss Schoberg, says that she saw Virginia Giuffre with Prince Andrew in Epstein's mansion in New York. And it then goes back to the question, if, as Prince Andrew says, he doesn't recall meeting her, why did he write a cheque to her for £12 million?
Yeah, Joanna Schoberg did say she saw Virginia Giuffre in that mansion. In these new documents, it does also claim, as we have heard previously, that Prince Andrew had sex with Virginia Giuffre on 3 separate occasions. One in New York, one in London, and one on Jeffrey Epstein's private island in, and I quote, an orgy with other underage girls. Now, at the time, with the breast touching with Schoberg, Buckingham Palace categorically denied those allegations. Now Buckingham Palace no longer represents Prince Andrew because he was forced to step back following the infamous Newsnight interview. As you said, Andrew, he settled out of court for a vast sum of money to a woman he claims he never met, but Prince Andrew has always denied these allegations. So it's all very tricky for Prince Andrew and the royal family.
Is there any misgivings now, regret in hindsight, but by the very high-profile decision of the King to walk with his brother to church in Sandringham on Christmas Day with Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, real show of family unity, when these documents we knew were coming out just days later?
And I think by looking at those images at Sandringham, it shows the difference between the private Windsor family and the working royal family. I do not see at the moment a way for Prince Andrew to become a working member of the royal family again, no matter how much he wants it, but it does show that he's still a values member of the private family unit. His brother, Prince Andrew's brother, is the king. His late mother was Queen Elizabeth II, and as you say, Sarah Ferguson was also there, but he's not going to suddenly be doing engagements on behalf of the king anytime
soon. Do you think it's important that we just remind viewers what the detail of this story is? Because we talk about the Epstein files, and we talk about this island and all of these high-powered people, and it's easy to forget that this is a little bit complicated. So the accusation, effectively, correct me, gentlemen, if you think this is wrong, but that there is a powerful cohort of very rich and influential people across the world, often from Hollywood, or as you say, royalty, or TV, drama, the media. Politics, thank you. Who have, for decades, lived and behaved with impunity outside of the normal rules that you and I might adhere to. And when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and sent to prison, there was a clamouring. Who was he servicing? Who was he providing these services to? It's all very well to say that he was committing acts of paedophilia, given that, and also, but the age. Do we know between us how young any girls were on the island that he is accused of?
Was allegedly 17.
Yeah, she maintained she was 17 at the time.
Which in this country would be above the age of consent, but of course in America.
But I think, but when he was alleged to have had sex with Giuffre in America, she was above the legal age of consent in America.
I'm sure that's the case, yeah.
But the fact is, Epstein wove a web of connections because of his wealth, and he was incredibly generous.
Yeah.
He may have been loaning people money, giving people money. Well, we know he gave Sarah Ferguson money to help with her debts.
And therefore it raises questions, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly raises questions. I think it is important to point out that a number of these high-profile figures, such as Bill Clinton, who have been named, there is no suggestion that there's any allegations of criminal wrongdoing.
He's denied ever being on his island, even.
Yeah, he has denied that.
But used his jets.
Yes, he used his jets. Glenn Maxwell in these files says that claims that Bill Clinton had a meal on the jets as well. But Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence for child sex trafficking. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in prison awaiting federal sex charges in New York. So it's all very tricky.
Just finally on Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, she was with the King on Christmas Day, and yet the King knows she took £40,000 from a man who we now know is a convicted paedophile. Was that a misjudgment?
Well, I think it's a show of unity. I think, obviously, the reason we didn't see Sarah Ferguson at Christmas for 40-odd years was because of the Duke of Edinburgh's relationship with Fergie. I think he found it very embarrassing following the so-called toe-sucking gate and all the rest of it. I think there's a difference between Charles and his father, Prince Philip, and I think Charles wants to show support to his brother. Family members,
OK, unfortunately, we have to leave it there for now. Cameron, thank you so much. Now, Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer are set to launch their election bids today.
They'll be giving speeches. Well, Starmer's giving a speech. We think the Prime Minister is doing a question and answer. Will they be more inspiring than the wet flop, which was the Lib Dem poster launch yesterday? Some of us think Reform UK could have been a bit more dynamic.
Controversial. Well, joining us now is Deputy Leader of Reform UK and newly announced candidate for Wellingborough, friend of GB News as well, Ben Habib. Ben, good morning. Congratulations on the fact that you're going to be standing in this seat. Right, where do we start? How did you think the speech went yesterday? I think it got a little bit of a lukewarm reception, actually, Richard Tice's speech.
Well, I thought Richard, I mean, you know, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I thought Richard set out quite a full exposition of the problems facing the country and the solutions that Reform had broadly to address them. And it might have been perhaps a bit too verbose for some, but if he hadn't done that, then, you know, people would have said, well, you know, what are the problems? What are your answers? What's your agenda?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Richard spoke very well, actually. And, of course, I spoke very well, too, I think.
Yes, of course you did.
Unless you're going to tell me otherwise.
No, you always do.
If you're listening on the radio, we've just shown a clip, of course, of Richard Tice with Nigel Farage, who is, of course, the eminence grise of Reform UK. That was the elephant in the room, Ben, wasn't it, yesterday? Where was Nigel Farage? When's he going to tell us what's he going to do? And Richard Tice, in my view, spoke for too long and didn't tell us anything new that we didn't know already.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there was a huge expectation built up about Nigel and Nigel's return to politics. And in a sense, that distracted from the day, because the message yesterday that we wanted to get across was, we are going on the attack, not just against the Tories, but against Labour. Labour, obviously, we think the Tories are awful, but that's no excuse not to point out that Labour are equally bad or worse. And the other big bit of news, obviously from a personal perspective yesterday, was that I'm going to be standing in Wellingborough. But all the media wanted to talk about was Nigel Farage.
Yeah,
and Nigel is so brilliant. It is frustrating, but he's so brilliant at working the media up. Even in the absence of saying anything, he managed to get everyone talking about him. But what I would say to members of Reform UK is that in the polls 2 years ago, we were polling about 2 or 3%. 3 months ago, we were polling 5%. Today, we're polling regularly at 10% plus. And that's all happened without Nigel, being in the fray. And we're going to go on doing what we do. We're going to go on putting out the small c Conservative message: small state, reduced taxation, less state intervention, less borrowing, championing the British worker, and so on and so forth. And I think that message is getting through, with or without Nigel. Of course, Nigel would be fantastic to have him back, but Reform UK is not a proxy for Nigel. We have our own agenda, and we're going to deliver it.
We were told there was going to be a big attack on Labour because you're not just an anti-Tory protest party, Ben, but actually most of the speech was a reheating of what we know already. The Tories are pretty badly screwed up, which is why they are so far behind in the polls. Wasn't it, again, a bit of a lost opportunity to expose Starmer, who's got no policies? We don't know what he stands for on income tax, Brexit. We don't know where he is.
Well, you're right. And I think one of the difficulties in attacking Labour is because Starmer has been, on the whole, studiously avoiding coming out with what he's going to do, because it's very, very difficult for him. We all know Labour is a borrow, tax and spend party. And typically what happens is Labour take over after people have forgotten how awful Labour is, after a protracted period of Conservative government, which has put the country's finances back into good shape. But this time Starmer is going to be standing for election with the country's finances in really bad shape. So he's really ham-fisted. He can't paint a rosy picture because he hasn't got the lolly with which to paint it. And, sadly, after 13 years of Conservative government, we have to fix the economy as a priority. And that's why voting for Reform UK is critical. Starmer, as Richard so brilliantly put it yesterday, would be Starmageddon. We've never had a Labour Party take over when national debt was at historic highs, when taxation was at historic highs, when GDP was flatlining to regressing on a per capita basis. Giving the reins of the economy over to Labour now would be a disaster. We need 5 years of genuine Conservative government. But you're not going to get that from the Conservative Party because they have pivoted so far to the left with their One Nation Liberal Democrat contingent part of their parliamentary party, that they've forgotten what it means to be Conservative. That's why we need Reform UK.
Ben, when you fight that seat, the Wellingborough by-election, that people will focus a lot on you. Already we've seen Tory MPs talking about your vast wealth, some suggestions you're worth £60 million. Good luck if you are. Perhaps you can tell us if you are worth that much. And some suggestions that you're a non-dom. Are you paying all your taxes here, Ben?
I'm not a non-dom. I'm paying all my taxes in the United Kingdom, and I wish I was as rich as people think I am, but I'm not.
How rich are you? How rich are you? Transparency and openness. Very good way forward in politics.
Well, that's
Ben.
a personal question.
If you don't deal with it, Ben, people will keep coming after you over it.
Well, I am the executive of a public company. I own shares in a public company. My earnings are fully disclosed. When I was an MEP, I was famously held out as the highest income-generating MEP. It's slightly strange because Berlusconi was in the same parliament as I was, and I think Berlusconi's a billionaire, so I don't know quite how it was that I trumped Berlusconi. But my income and my wealth are pretty much out there in the public domain. The largest part of my personal wealth is in the shares of my company, which is a property company, and like many property companies over lockdowns and now with inflation, the share price sadly has gone down. So my personal wealth has taken a knock because of Conservative Party policy.
But Ben,
which
you wouldn't
gives me a very good vested interest.
You don't want to become an MP for the salary, let's be honest. So why do you want to put your life, just flip everything upside down and get involved in this?
Well, as I said to Andrew last time I was on, I will not take an MP salary. I'm doing this because of duty and because I am triggered, frankly. I got triggered back in 2019 when Theresa May was...
We've lost Ben. We've lost Ben. And if you missed that, what Ben Habib just said is he won't take an MP's salary.
Which is interesting, because an MP is paid
Amazing.
About £85,000, going up, I think, is it to £92,000? That is nearly triple what the average wage is.
Yeah.
He will be the only unpaid MP out of 650. He will take his expenses to pay for his staff, but that's an interesting...
But if that doesn't make your ears prick up about where these people are coming from in reform, then nothing will.
All the more reason, though, I still think Ben should say, actually, no, I'm not worth 60 million, I'm actually worth 32 million. Because if you,
I don't think it matters.
I think people... But what I say, Bev, will happen is that it will become an issue for him.
Look at what Rishi Sunak is worth. His wife is worth billions.
But we know.
Jacob Rees-Mogg is a wealthy man.
But we know.
David Cameron is a wealthy man.
Yeah, but
I don't care.
Because they're insurgents, and we welcome insurgents in the political scene, I think people will talk a lot about his wealth, and I would knock it on the head.
But does it really matter?
Not to me. Not to me at all. He could be worth $2 billion.
I would like
wealthy people should not be deterred from going into public life. That's absolutely what I'd say. But I think just to say I'm not worth 60 million, I'm worth a lot less than that, I'm just saying it's not going to go away.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think. It's a really good talking point. gbviews@gbnews.com. Still to come, Starmer is going to be setting out his policies for 2024.
Don't forget, we're talking to the darts winner.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. Could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas, it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England, perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again, the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coasts, but for many, Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
So much to come in the next 2 hours here on Britain's Newsroom. We're going to be talking to the winner of the darts.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Luke Humphries.
The other Luke.
Don't go anywhere.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other pay-per-review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
It is 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 4th of January. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Bev Turner and Andrew Pierce.
Starmer's strategy. The Labour leader is going to talk today about how his party is the one to end national despair. Our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, has more.
Yes, Keir Starmer might be 18 points ahead in the polls, but the Labour leader still has some problems to contend with what's set to be a very long general election campaign. Find out more with me very soon.
And we are going to be talking to Luke Humphries, who beat the pressure cooker of Ali Pali last night, walked away with £500,000 despite the crowd not being on his side. How did he do it? We're going to find out. That's Luke Littler, though. We're still looking at pictures of Luke Littler, even though he didn't win it.
Exactly. Well, before we go to Starmer, we're going to talk, of course, to GB News' very own sport presenter, Paul Coy. Well, it was a result you wanted to happen.
It was the result I wanted to happen.
Luke Humphries won.
Yeah, he did. And I think it's the right thing.
I think so
we discussed it, didn't we, yesterday, saying that Luke Littler is 16 years old. Is it just going to be too much?
Yeah.
Everybody was behind him. The whole crowd was behind him. But Luke Humphries, let's not forget what a great story it is that he's won. You know, he's battled mental health. He lost a huge amount of weight. And he's, all of a sudden, in the past year, just gone like this.
Yeah.
And he's won 5 out of 6 tournaments.
Well, I'm so excited that we get to talk to him because when I watched him in his post-match interview last night, and he said, didn't he, that at one point he said, I had terrible depression, I had awful anxiety, and his family were crying in the crowd, and I thought, wow, they've all been on quite an experience, haven't they, all together?
Oh, without a doubt. Can you imagine what the story would have been like if Luke Littler hadn't been playing?
Yeah.
Because there would have been so much about Luke Humphries, and I just wonder whether it did him a favour that the pressure was away from him. Because when we look at sport, there's so much more to it, and the pressure has got a huge amount to do with it. And as a 16-year-old, I don't think Littler felt the pressure, but he played the best player in the world.
But Luke Humphries is the comeback kid, isn't he? Because he's battled against these great disadvantages, the
challenges,
mental health issue, his weight, looks good. Handled himself very well afterwards in the media interviews. And he's already the world number one. He didn't become the world number one even before he won the championship.
That's right, and it was only in the semi-final he became the world number one. And this is what's really great for darts. So the people at the PDC, they must be rubbing their hands together because not only have they got the 16-year-old, which is the great story, you've got Luke Humphries, who turns out to be a great ambassador because you hear the way he speaks so well, and he, you know, incredibly gracious as well in the way he talked about Littler. But then again, young Luke at 16 was very similar as well. He handled himself so well.
And when Luke Humphries walked out last night, am I right, Paul? I heard booing in that crowd. It was not a welcome reception that he got.
There is the thing. Now, if you're Bruce or if you're Luke, there's going to be Luke, like Bruce Springsteen. When you see Bruce Springsteen goes, are people booing Bruce? No, that's the yell. So it was probably more Luke than it was a boo.
Right.
There were boos which you would hear during the game. So, for example, if there's the legendary 9-dart finish, which is the ultimate, it's like the 147 in snooker. So treble 20, you got 3 treble 20s, no 3 treble 20s, and the lowest you can do 501, which is what they play, is in 9 darts. So after 3 treble 20s, one, then another one, and when that one missed, then you'd hear the boos because the crowd want to see a 9-dart finish. And that hadn't been seen at the World Championship this year.
Do we have any idea how many people like me bought a special darts pass off Sky just to watch that event?
Oh, did you?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I know there were some nefarious means of watching it illegally online last night, but I thought if Sky Sports...
Did you look behind you when you said that?
No, he wouldn't know how to... He barely
not.
knows how to find YouTube, never mind work out how to pay.
He's still got dial-up on the internet, haven't he?
But you
That's
see...
unfair, I'm sorry.
But I thought, no, if Sky Sports are promoting this minority sport with these youngsters in, I'm going to give them my 12 quid. They deserve it. So I went... Well, I didn't actually. My much younger boyfriend did.
Okay,
I wouldn't have known how to do it either.
Coming out now. Yeah. Stood past, saw the odd bit.
We managed to watch it, and it was a really great evening of entertainment, actually. Do we have any idea how many people will have done what I did last night?
Well, I'll tell you what we do know, and that is that there was a bigger audience for Sky Sports than there was for the Ashes. There was a bigger audience than there was for the Ryder Cup this year.
Wow.
More people tuned into the darts, and without doubt, it's because of Luke Littler.
Yeah.
Captivating. It's a captivating story, isn't it? A 16-year-old boy, not old enough to vote, not old enough to buy a pint, can only go into Publix with his 21-year-old girlfriend, and there he was at the pinnacle, and he almost did it, because it was very close, wasn't it?
It really was. He was 1 dart away from leading 5-2. And if he'd led 5-2 in sets, it was the first to 7, he probably would have gone on. But that's sport.
Yeah.
You know, it turns on a sixpence.
Yeah.
So it did happen where Humphries then went on and won 5 sets on the trot, and then it was all over for
and it works. It's the first one to get to 6, but you've got to win to 7.
Yeah,
seven sets, isn't it? Just to remind our viewers, we are waiting for Sir Keir Starmer to take to the lectern and blow your minds with his brilliant oratory in just a moment. But I can't think of anything nicer to talk about, to be honest, while we wait for Keir Starmer.
Is watching us and wanting to hear the end of the darts.
Yes,
because
exactly.
He didn't see what happened.
Do you think he's a darts fan? Past Labour leaders probably were.
Put it this way, I think he probably would say he was a darts fan, but whether he really is a darts fan... But
also, when Tony Blair told us he was a Newcastle United fan and sat in the stands and watched a certain player playing, the stand wasn't even built when he said he was.
There's quite a few of them that have done that stuff, talking about different
David
sports.
Cameron got the wrong football team, do you remember, during the general election?
Yes.
My team, Aston Villa, and apparently his team somebody else, or the other way round. I can't remember, West Ham.
Have we had any statements from politicians applauding the result last night? I'm surprised they've not waded in.
I'm surprised, because the thing is, they probably just had well done, Luke, you've won the World Championship, because when you've got two Lukes playing, you can't really go wrong. What's interesting is that it's the names. We had two Lukes this year.
Amazing, that.
We had two Michaels last year.
Did we?
And we had, on breakfast, we were talking to Dimitri Vandenberg, who's now realised that his chance of being in the World Final next year is pretty much nil because there's no other Dimitris.
Yes, what do you think will happen now for Luke Littler? Because he's the one that has caught the public imagination, as much as we say it's brilliant that Luke Humphries did that as well. But will he become a bit of a figure for the commercial brands, for the advertising agencies, for appearances? He's set to make a lot of money.
All of those things. There was one question that I really didn't like that was in a press conference. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And you know what these things are like. You know, you get the journos to be asking, tell us, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Yeah. And this is a 16-year-old kid that plays darts. And he was asked, oh, yeah, tell us, Luke, do you have a message for other 16-year-olds that are doing their GCSEs right now? And I'm just thinking, what are you asking him that for? Yeah. And he said, well, to be honest with you, I didn't get any.
He didn't get any,
No, he didn't.
So I can say
Too busy playing darts.
If you're a darts player, keep concentrating on that. And it's like, is that really necessary? And we know as soon as someone comes on the scene, everybody looks at them, then any question, it's like, oh, please tell us this. We want to know this. We want to know that. So he's got to try and keep that together.
I was very struck this week as well. Emma Raducanu, who famously won the US Open, aged, was she 19? Extraordinary. But did she peak too soon? She's made a comeback this week after 11 months of injury. Did she perhaps, Paul, spend too much time with modelling contracts? Because she's made millions modelling. She's a very attractive young woman, and not enough time on the tennis court. Again, did it come too soon for her?
Well, it's a balancing act, isn't it, between those? Because you have got to have the public persona, and if you're very successful at your sport, then all these things are going to come along. You're not going to say, I'm not interested in anything. You've got to concentrate on your sport. But Emma Raducanu, it was injuries. So she had wrist injuries, she had leg injuries, she had 3 operations all in the space of a year.
Amazing.
With a darts player, there's not really that too many injuries that you're going to face.
Do you reckon they have one very, very strong arm and one really weedy one? That's what me and my partner were contemplating last night. They must have one massive arm and one skinny one.
Well, the thing is, I don't think the weight is 22 grams.
Doing that a lot, though, aren't you?
There is going to be a lot of that. And the thing is, I know a lot of people that do a lot of that. They don't have a very large arm. That's mostly in Westminster, isn't it?
Well, we hope he's not doing that. He's only 16, so he's too young to be putting back pints.
Of course he is, but the whole image of darts, which has changed a huge amount. Glenn Durrant, we spoke to earlier, who's a BDO world champion, was saying that back in, if you remember that old, not the 9 o'clock news sketch, do you remember that?
Go on.
And it was basically darts, because back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was big men that were drinking pints and smoking fags, and that's what it was. And then there was the sketch where you get the darts player and he's coming up. What's he going for? He's going for the triple vodka. He's going for the triple vodka, and they throw darts in the background. And although it was really funny, Glenn was saying, well, you know what? It actually put darts back so many years because that's what everybody saw darts as.
Right. We'd love to carry on the conversation, but we're going live now to the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, who's delivering a keynote speech, we're told, in the West Country. Here's Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Claire. You will be a great candidate, a really great candidate for Filton and Bradley Stoke, and I hope in time an even better MP. And it's great to be here again, looking at the next generation of aircraft wings. You can see some of the instruments behind me. This is the 3rd time, and I love it, and it features pretty heavily in quite a number of my speeches. But look, on behalf of the Labour Party, thank you for being here this morning, and Happy New Year. Now, as a politician, you've got to be a bit careful with these New Year messages. We'll all remember Boris Johnson's prediction of a fantastic year ahead. That was 2020. And then last year, I stuck my neck out and occasionally predicted glory for Arsenal. So I'll pass on that one today. But look, there is one thing that we can be sure is coming this year, and I'm ready for it. The thought of millions of people right across our country putting a cross on that ballot paper. It's what we've been waiting for, preparing for, fighting for, a year of choice. a chance to change Britain, a clock that is ticking on this government. Because whether it's in the spring or later in the year, the moment when power is taken out of Tory hands and given, not to me, but to you, that moment is getting closer by the second. So, if you've spent the last 14 years volunteering to keep your park clean, your library open, for children to have opportunities, if you've been breaking your back to keep trading, steering your business through the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, the challenge of Brexit, and the chaos of Westminster, if you've been serving our country, whether in scrubs or in the uniform of your regiment, and what you want now is a politics that serves you, then make no mistake, this is your year. The opportunity to shape our country's future rests in your hands. And that is a New Year message of hope. The hope of democracy, the power of the vote, the potential for national renewal, the chance finally to turn the page, lift the weight off our shoulders, unite as a country and get our future back. For 4 years I've been working for this. 4 years working for the chance to tilt this country firmly and decisively back towards the interests of working people. It's been a long, hard slog. And I won't lie, I've hated the futility of opposition, the powerlessness and, yes, the pain that comes from watching the Tories drive the country I love into the rocks of decline. I didn't come into politics for that. I didn't expect a front row seat on this Tory performance art, a song and dance for your political attention, because they find performing so much easier than the hard graft of practical achievement. No. I came into politics to serve, to get things done, to strive each and every day to make a difference to the lives of working people. That's what gets me up in the morning. And if you can put aside the reality of Westminster just for a moment, it's why I still believe in politics. I had a long career before this, at the Crown Prosecution Service, as a human rights lawyer, in my work with the Police Service of Northern Ireland. I've looked into the eyes of people I served and represented, and I've seen reflected back the knowledge that government can make or break a life. Literally, when it comes to work I've done with people on death row, life and death decisions in your hands. Now, there's a pressure with that, of course there is. But that's the responsibility of justice and public service. And it's the responsibility of serious government. This isn't a game. Politics shouldn't be a hobby, a pastime for people who enjoy the feeling of power. And nor should it be a sermon from on high, a self-regarding lecture, vanity dressed up as virtue. No, it should be a higher calling, the power of the vote, the hope of change and renewal married to the responsibility of service. That's what I believe in. And yes, I believe it's still the best way to change our country for the better. Its success or failure is written into the walls of every community in this country. The hospital your children were born in, the home you live in, the wage in your pocket, the opportunities in your town, the sense of pride or unease when you walk down your street. That's all politics. So this year at the general election, against the tide of cynicism in the understandable despair of a downtrodden country, I will ask the British people to believe in it again. I will say, you're right to be anti-Westminster, right to be angry about what politics has become, but hold on to the flickering hope in your heart that things can be better, because they can. You can choose it. You can choose the hope of national renewal, the responsibility of service, what politics can and should be, and you can reject the pointless populist gestures, the low-road cynicism that the Tories believe is all you deserve. That's all they've got left now. After 14 years, with nothing good to show, no practical achievements to point towards, no purpose beyond the fight to save their own skins, this is their only project. They can't change Britain, so they will try to undermine the possibility of change itself, take Britain down to their level, kick the hope out of all of us. But I believe in this country. I believe in its spirit. I believe in its people, its businesses, its communities. And most of all, I believe that if the British people see respect and service in their politics, if they see a plan which matches the ambition and pride they have for their community, a path finally to an economy that rewards and respects their efforts, then yes, they will commit to the mission of national renewal, will believe that Britain can get its future back. But I'm under no illusions. This is a huge test. We're trying not just to defeat the Tories, but to defeat their entire way of doing politics. A mindset that seeks out any differences between the people of this country and, like weeds between the paving stones, will pull apart the cracks so ultimately they can divide and rule. I have to warn you, they will leave no stone unturned this year. Every opportunity for division will be exploited for political potential. That's a given. But do not doubt for a second that we're ready for it. Do not doubt that we will show the British people that the real risk is 5 more years of a Tory government that will be even more entitled, even more self-serving, even more complacent, that your vote can be taken for granted. And yet, at the same time, we have to bring the country together, have to earn trust as well as votes, nurture a spirit of national unity. That's what's distinctive about our job this year. To truly defeat this miserablest Tory project, we must crush their politics of divide and decline with a new Project Hope. Not a grandiose utopian hope, not the hope of the easy answer, the quick fix, the miracle cure. People have had their fill of that from politicians over the last 14 years. No, they need credible hope, a frank hope, a hope that levels with you about the hard road ahead, but which shows you a way through, light at the end of the tunnel, the hope of the certain destination. That's why the national missions we've set out, the measurable goals, whether it's the highest growth in the G7, halving violence against women and girls, clean power by 2030, now, they are unapologetically ambitious. I know they will take hard work, determination, patience, a true national effort. And for many people, that invites a sharp intake of breath, a raised eyebrow, a question. Can this really be done? But look, what really keeps me up at night is a different reaction altogether. The biggest challenge we face, bar none, the shrug of the shoulder. Because this is the paradox of British politics right now. Everyone agrees we're in a huge mess. Services on their knees, an economy that doesn't work for working people, even when it grows, let alone when it stagnates like now. Everyone agrees as well that it's been like this for a while, that Britain needs change, wants change, is crying out for change. And yet, trust in politics is now so low, so degraded, that nobody believes you can make a difference anymore. Also that after the sex scandals, the expenses scandals, the waste scandals, the contracts for friends, even in a crisis like the pandemic, some people have looked at us and concluded we're all just in it for ourselves. A nation that is so exhausted, tired, despairing even, that they've given up on hope. A national mood which, if we aren't successful with our Project Hope, the Tories will subtly seek to exploit. I mean, seriously, after failing to deliver change, after ludicrously pretending that they could represent change, they now sense the opportunity of a new strategy, an attempt to take the change option off the table altogether. And not just at the next election. No, their strategy has also one eye on salting the earth of Britain's future. A plan to make sure that if Labour does earn the right to serve, we will find it harder to bring our country together for the common good. So I say to every voter in this country, know that all this is coming your way. Know that if we are to heal the wounds of the past 14 years and move forward, Britain must come together. And that means we will need you. But also know that whether you're thinking of voting Labour for the first time, whether you always vote Labour, or whether you've no intention of voting Labour whatsoever, my party will serve you. That's who we are now. A changed party. No longer enthralled to gesture politics. No longer a party of protest. A party of service. Rebuilt, renewed, reconnected to an old partnership, a Labour partnership, that we serve working people as they drive Britain forward. So this is what I promise, my side of the deal. The answer to the question, why Labour? I promise a new purpose, to drag politics in this country back to service, tilt our economy back towards the interests of working people, reward their efforts fairly once again. I promise a new plan with new priorities, 5 national missions that will sweep away the era of Tory division. A plan for the long term, with higher growth, a reformed planning system, no longer blocking the homes, infrastructure and investment we need. Safer streets, more police in your town, cracking down on antisocial behaviour. Cheaper bills, with GB Energy, a new public company, using clean British power, not foreign oil and gas. More opportunities for your children. New technical excellence colleges, training our kids in the skills they need and businesses want. Better mental health support in schools. Expert teachers in every classroom, paid for by removing tax breaks on private schools. And our NHS back on its feet, with a plan to cut the waiting lists, paid for by removing the non-dom tax status. 2 million more appointments every year.
So that's Labour leader Keir Starmer with yet another devastating, exciting, brilliantly delivered speech. He's a great orator, isn't he? We're in the studio with our panel. Scarlett Maguire, former advisor to the Labour Party, and the broadcaster Mike Parry. Let's go to you first, Scarlett Maguire. He's not a great orator, is he? And he's been talking for about 15 minutes, and I'm none the wiser what he's going to do as Prime Minister.
Well, on this one, he's talking about cleaning up politics, and he is actually putting clear water between Labour and the Tories about because we do know that what the Tories talk about all the time is they try and find the differences, they try and do woke stuff, whereas what he's saying is
no, they try and stop woke nonsense.
But they try and find it, right, when on things that really don't matter, right, or things that where you can just leave it. So I mean, I think what he's really doing is talking about cleaning up politics, because there is a real problem in this country about trust.
Can I suggest he's doing something else? He's just talking cliched riddle jargon. Clock ticking, rocks of decline, Britain gets its future back, light at the end of the tunnel, no more quick fixes, new plan, new priorities, no stone unturned. Oh, God.
No.
Where have we heard that old rubbish before?
No. This is the problem with political speeches is that they take a long time to say very little. And this is true of all political speeches.
But why do they do that? Because this is why so many people, Scarlett, are just not engaged with politics, isn't it? Because they waffle on like this for hours. Who's he talking to?
I totally agree with you. That will turn people off. I've just lost 20 minutes of my life, which I'll never get back, right? Listening to utter...
I've just heard.
Listening to utter drivel. If a Martian had landed 20 minutes ago and listened to that and then said, take me to your leader, and they took them to Keir Starmer, they'd say, we don't believe you. He's not a leader.
They'd go back.
They'd go back. We don't believe you. He's not a leader. Look, he's not saying anything at all. You know, it says there, Starmer's election strategy. What strategy? I haven't heard any strategy. It says underneath, Labour leader urges voters to reject pointless populist gestures, like taking the knee maybe, or something like that. I mean, what on earth is he talking about?
Which he was famously photographed doing, wasn't it, for Black Lives Matter?
Exactly.
It's very much brushstrokes, this, isn't it? Broad, safe brushstrokes, appealing to people's emotions, not giving us any facts, talking about the flickering light in your heart. He said, you know, he talks about emotions. He's mentioned hope, anger, ambition, pride. They've got to earn our trust.
What about mentioning tax?
Because... So what we know, OK, is that if he does tax cuts, then you have to cut other things.
Now, what about telling us if he's going to raise taxes or cut taxes?
He's not going to raise taxes.
How do you know he's not?
Scarlett, honestly, that's almost...
First Labour leader who's never raised taxes.
Exactly. It's almost political naivety. I know you're not politically naive, but to say Labour won't raise taxes, why doesn't he come out and say, look, let me get something straight for you. I've said I'm a human rights lawyer.
Hang on, let me finish.
I've said I'm a human rights lawyer, so then we say, OK, are you going to give any more advantages to people coming to this country? What about Angela Rayner? She's going to toughen up the rules for working people. What are you going to do about that? What about Ed Miliband and his £28 billion on green? What are you going to do about that? Every year. I mean, why doesn't he address the issues that he says are going to be implemented when he becomes leader?
This speech is about cleaning up politics. But can I go back to the tax thing? Is over and over again, right, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer and all the rest have said they will not raise taxes. I mean, this is what...
But they're putting 20%...
Yesterday, the Times reported, very definitive briefing from the Shadow Chancellor Office, she may cut taxes. Which ones?
But they've already...
Well, I don't know, do I?
Well, because it's hype. And they're not going to tell us. So they're going to raise the green burden on this £28 billion. That'll come through higher taxes. Where they're saying to get the money from?
No, it's called investment. It's called
investment. It's called bankrupting the country.
The thing about the green, it's not a burden. It's actually...
Not a burden.
It's about time that we had a proper... It's about renewable energy, which is much, much cheaper than the other. It's about insulating homes. It's actually about skilling people. It's about using green for growth.
I think that's all
what we need.
propaganda.
Can we just say, in terms of tax, we do know one tax they're going to put on, which is 20% VAT on private school fees.
Yes.
So families out there who work really, really hard and prioritise their children's education, that is going to change it. They will not be able to afford an extra 20% per child, and they will all flood into the state system, which is already overrun. Let's have a quick listen to Keir Starmer again.
Service that shows zero tolerance towards the darker side of Westminster. Now, don't get me wrong. There are good people in Westminster, people who love their country and want to change it for the better. And yet, a basic principle of any organisation I've worked in outside of politics, that you should follow the rules you set for others, uphold the values you advocate, This just doesn't seem to be followed or understood in Westminster. I mean, honestly, what does anyone think it looks like to the people of this country to see people rewarded, honoured, for crashing the economy under Liz Truss? If your mortgage is going up this year and you see those people swanning around the House of Lords, what do you think? No, I say to all my fellow politicians, Labour and Tory, to change Britain, we must change ourselves. We need to clean up politics. No more VIP fast lanes, no more kickbacks for colleagues, no more revolving doors between government and the companies they regulate. I will restore standards in public life with a total crackdown on cronyism. I've put expense-cheap politicians in jail before, and I didn't care if they were Labour or Tory. And I grew up working class, so spare me the self-serving excuses. They just won't wash. This ends now. Nobody will be above the law in a Britain that I lead. But with respect and service, I also promise this: a politics that treads a little lighter on all of our lives. Because that's the thing about populism or nationalism. Any politics fueled by division. It needs your full attention, needs you constantly focusing on this week's common enemy. And that's exhausting, isn't it? On the other hand, a politics that aspires to national unity, bringing people together, the common good, that's harder to express, less colourful, fewer clicks on social media, and in some ways, it's more demanding of you. It asks you to moderate your political wishes out of respect for the different wishes of others. I mean, 45 million voters can't get everything they want. That's democracy. So no matter the road the Tories take this year, I believe that if people see the commitment to service is always there in politics, if they can see that people in power respect their concerns, then I think a lot of people across the country, after everything we've been through in the last 14 years, will find some hope in that. It will feel different, frankly. The character of politics will change, and with it, the national mood. A collective breathing out, a burden lifted, and then the space for a more hopeful look forward. Because the truth is, it's this kind of politics, and only this kind of politics, that can offer real change. The energy needed for divisive politics is a distraction. You can see that with the SNP in Scotland, or the Tories here in England. And I learnt this firsthand in Northern Ireland. Before the police service of Northern Ireland was set up, the idea that the nationalist community would buy into it in any way was utterly unthinkable. Now, there's always more work to do on that. Peace in Northern Ireland has to be won every day. And yet, with patient listening, with determination, with the people of Northern Ireland coming together, not only with those different to them, not only with those who disagreed with them, but even with those who took up arms against them, the unthinkable happened. Catholic men and women...
That's Keir Starmer still talking. We've had some amazing emails coming in. I love this one from Richard. It says, sound bites, waffle and hot air with the obligatory rolled-up sleeves look and the occasional sip of water. Scarlett Maguire, why do they always wear rolled-up sleeves and no jacket? What's this all about?
So it's about...
Man of the workers. Man of the workers.
I mean, it doesn't matter which party you are in.
No.
I say
Yeah.
it's about, I'm going to get down to work. I'm not a stuffed suit. I can do things.
But people like Richard see straight through it.
Yeah. And, no, the problem with politicians is they don't understand that we can see straight through everything. And what we want is brief speeches saying what they're going to do.
Bullet points.
Bullet points, so that we can then say, do we agree or do we disagree with them? And this goes through all the parties. I have to say, big and small, as we know.
Listening to this, Mike Parry, I feel like I've just been trapped in the corner with the most boring man in the office at the Christmas party.
You're not looking at me when you're saying that, are you?
You and don't mean you and Andrew. It's torture.
Do you know what? I think this has done him no good. Because if the country reacts like our audience are reacting now, this is an absolute wet fish speech. And whilst he's been accused consistently of never coming up with policies, never having anything proper to say, as Scarlett said, where are the bullet points on your policies? This is the best example of a man who hasn't got a policy and hasn't got a clue what he's going to present to the British public.
Because he's relying on one thing, Mike. He's relying on the Tories
going down.
And wouldn't you think? Good job at that.
Yeah, he is. But there are some economic signs this morning, aren't there? The interest rates for mortgages might start to come down. Inflation is heading down. Country looking stronger. Very good retail figures over the Christmas period. Now, that should have shaken him up and thought, hang on, maybe in 3 months' time, I'm not just going to be able to rely on the Tories imploding.
I am one of those people who would consider myself to be politically homeless at the moment. And I really wanted to be inspired by this, Scarlett. I really did, because the chances are, looking at the polls, this is going to be our new Prime Minister. And I started watching this with my pen in my hand, waiting for the nuggets of policy and strategy and vision.
You've got rocks of decline.
I've got...
What do you want?
We've only... I want more than rocks of decline to be crashed upon.
But I mean, this was not a speech about economic policy. This was a speech about the cultural differences between Labour and Tory. And I mean, it's actually about wanting to change Westminster, wanting to change.
But nobody cares about
nobody cares.
Nobody cares about that. We know what's happened during the pandemic. We know the corruption with the blooming contracts which were given out to mates left, right, and centre. We look at Michelle Moan, is it in the paper? Grown, Baroness. We know all that, and we kind of have to just have faith that this lot will be different.
I totally agree. Another cliche earlier on, you know, politicians shouldn't just enjoy the feeling of power. Well, why did he support Jeremy Corbyn then for 2 or 3 years? The only option in supporting Jeremy Corbyn was to get into government.
4 years he supported him at a time when dozens of shadow ministers resigned. Yes. He's terrible.
Exactly.
Keir Starmer kept taking the shilling.
Exactly.
From a man who was appalling and not fit to be Prime Minister.
There was... I mean, I disagree with you on every count, and there was no money involved.
No, there was no money.
There was no money. Let's get this absolutely straight.
But he thought there might be a chance he'd get into his cabinet.
No, what he thought was... Jeremy Corbyn said, can you do Brexit? And Keir thought, he genuinely thought that he could get a good deal on Brexit. And that's what he tried to do.
By backing a second referendum to negate the first vote.
Yeah.
No.
That's what he came up
by plotting with the Europeans to dismantle it.
He did plot with the Europeans.
He was a key figure in the move for a second referendum. Labour policy.
He did not plot with the Europeans, can I say. The Labour Party was completely split over Brexit, and he was trying to keep it together.
Yes, so he said, you may have voted in your 19 million, was it, or 19.5 million to vote to leave the European Union, but I'm going to put a second referendum.
Or 17 million who didn't want to leave. And we now know that the polling shows...
Are you trying to reopen the Brexit argument?
I'm not. I am absolutely not. Brexit is over.
Right.
We are out of the European Union.
Hurrah.
There is absolutely, which is one of the reasons we are broken Britain, because actually it has been bad for us. We are out of the European Union, and what we now have to do is we now have to have good trade treaties.
Yeah, but you must have seen the figures early this week, Scarlett, that the UK economy is set to grow faster in the next 5 years, providing we have a stable government, than any other European government. That's because of Brexit. That's because we're doing trade deals with people like Florida. We might not have a US trade deal, but we've got 7 states in America, each the size of Spain, with whom we have got trade deals, and this country is growing.
Well, but we...
I can't possibly say anything about Brexit's positive. Of course I can't.
No, I was going to say the thing about forecasting, right, is they're always wrong. I mean, you know, if they say something that you don't like, you go, it's always wrong. I mean, we know nothing about forecasting. I mean,
it's not forecasting, it's solid fact. We've got trade deals in India, we've got trade deals in the Pacific, we've got trade deals across America, and it's doing us good.
And we used to have trade deals with all of them through Europe, so it doesn't...
Not to the extent we have now.
What I'm talking about is this forecasting. We have no idea what's going to happen.
You know where I think Keir Starmer's missed a trick this morning? We've had this story that we were going to discuss in our panel, but obviously we've been distracted by this, which is about the fact that there are directors of companies in the City of London this morning who will have earned more money by 1 p.m. than the average person will earn in this country over a year. He should have opened his speech with that. If he wants to make a difference to working people, I hate working class as a phrase, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Why doesn't he come out with something strong and evidential?
He would see that as being something he could latch onto and say, look, it's an unbalanced society. I actually see it as a very positive sign that this country is thriving and people, particularly in the City of London, are earning huge amounts of money, which means other people are in prosperous jobs. I think it's a great sign. I think it's a great sign.
I think it is actually. I think it's appalling that people that the difference in the people at the top and the bottom are so enormous. I think it. I mean, I'm with Bev. It's a completely divided country, and I mean, one of the things that, as an Arsenal supporter, used to makes me really angry is you have all these players and then you have the cleaners on minimum wage, right? And it is just absolutely wrong. And the point is, it's not that I mind people earning lots and lots of money. I do mind the fact that they then make sure that the people at the bottom earn as little as possible.
I don't mind as long as it feels like the closing that gap is moving in the right direction.
Which
so
it is.
I applaud people who want to put their house up for low, you know, to basically set their business up and they take out debt and they risk it. I admire those people. They're up at 3 o'clock in the morning building these businesses. I don't begrudge them a penny. However, we've seen in the last 3 years the biggest transfer of wealth in history from the have-nots to the haves, and I don't like that, Mike.
But that is being rebalanced. Only last month, didn't we put up the minimum wage to over £11 in this country, highest in Europe, Now, that's very damaging to small businesses. People think, oh, well, Shell can afford it, you know, BP can afford it, but the bloke running a bakery around the corner with 12 employees can't afford it. So that is a transfer of wealth, which is very positive for those on lower wages. But again, Scholar, in a capitalist society, you have to have those who create companies and those who work for them.
We're going to go back to the press conference because he's finally finished his speech, thank the Lord for that, and he's taking questions from the press. Keir Starmer.
For raising taxes, including freezing income tax thresholds. If you don't want voters to be cynical, then level with them. If you win power, will you unfreeze income tax thresholds?
Well, Anushka, look, starting from fundamental principles on this, I do want more people to have more money in their pocket. That's a fundamental principle that we start with. Now, the question is, how do we get to that? And I'm challenged on tax all of the time. The first lever that we want to pull, the first place we will go, is growth in our economy, because that's what's been missing for 14 years. Without growth, we won't have the money to run our public services, to provide what is desperately needed. So that's why we've put all of our focus on growth and on the economy. Now, where we are going to make adjustments to tax, we've been really clear about what that looks like. So we've said what we're going to do with VAT on private schools, the non-dom status, the loopholes that we have. So where we are making adjustments, we've been very, very clear about it. And as Pat McFadden said this morning on the media, any tax cuts have to be fair and affordable, and we have to be realistic about that. But I think the place to go is to growth on this. But the idea, frankly, that the Tories can lecture anybody about tax cuts or tax rises is now ludicrous. We've got a higher tax burden now than at any time since the Second World War. That's every government, including all those Labour governments. So they're in absolutely no position. And that's why I said centrally in this speech, if they want to fight on the economy, if they still think in some fantasy land that this is strong territory for them, they don't realise how much we've turned the tables now. They don't realise just how poor a card that is for them to play. Thank you, Anushka. Can I go to Paul, Channel 4?
It's Paul McNamara, Channel 4 News. Where's your jacket? Another glitter incident? Sorry, wrong question.
Don't tempt fate.
Look, John Crudder said he doesn't know what a Keir Starmer government would stand for. The same comes up time and time again in focus groups. Now, I know your team says you've got lots of policies, you've got 2 pages of them, but if 2 years in, both Labour policy chiefs, former or whatever, and voters don't know what a Keir Starmer government would stand for, what is it you are getting wrong?
Well, Paul, thank you for the question. Last year, I set out in more detail than I think any opposition leader has ever set out before, the 5 driving missions of the next Labour government. And I've just been through them. That higher growth, high sustained growth in the G7. There's no lack of clarity there. It's very clear what that means, measured in living standards across the whole country. An NHS, not just off its feet, but fit for the future. No lack of clarity there. Nobody said, what are you talking about? I don't understand that. The opportunities that children and young people need for the skills they need for their life and the work they're actually going to do. You can't say, well, that's a bit ambiguous, I don't understand that. Safe streets, halving violence against women and girls. What's ambiguous or unclear about that? And so, you know, and clean power by 2030, this idea of ensuring we have lower bills, energy security, and the next generation of jobs. There's no lack of clarity there. So I believe firmly that we've set out precisely what we're going to do. I've also said that these will be our priority. And I've said a number of times there will be good Labour things we won't be able to do in quite the way we wanted when we wanted. So set out in terms of what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how we're going to achieve it, and I take your question as an invitation just to repeat that so that hopefully those that still claim that we've not been clear can have another chance to remind themselves of all the things I've been saying for many, many months now. Thank you very much. Chris, GB News.
Thank you. Christopher Hope, GB News. You mentioned clean power there by 2030, lower bills, that would mean. How would you fund the 28 billion annual cost of your net zero measures? From borrowing or taxes? And a quick one about the darts last night. Has Luke Littler's maturity and professionalism shown that 16-year-olds are ready to have a vote? The voting age should be cut from 9 to 8.
Chris, Happy New Year. You're the first to breach the one question rule. I'm sure Beth is going to be vying to get that position back as quickly as possible. Look, on clean power 2030, the first thing to say is, let's be clear what the mission is, which is clean power by 2030. And that is one of our 5 missions, and we are determined to achieve it for all the reasons I've said, because with that comes lower bills, with that comes energy security. Putin can't put his foot on our throat, and with that comes the next generation of jobs. We've set out how that will be funded, the money that is needed for the investment that is undoubtedly needed, saying that the £28 billion will be ramped up in the second half of the Parliament, that it'll be subject, of course, to any money that the government is already putting in, and it'll be subject to our fiscal rules. And that means that if the money is from borrowing, which it will be, borrowing to invest, but the fiscal rules don't allow it, then we'll borrow less. So it's very clear, and that's why this attack is utterly misconceived on us. It's a very clear strategy, and frankly, I think most people understand the argument. It's an everyday argument that you have to invest in the future, and that's what we will do. It's the lack of investment, the lack of long-term thinking that has put us in the position we're in now. We're more exposed on the international market when it comes to energy than many other countries. Why? Because the government never took long-term decisions. I'm not prepared for an incoming Labour government to make that mistake. Thank you, Chris. Sorry, on the darts.
Oh. The darts.
I mean, Luke Littler, I mean, it's been incredible watching the darts, seeing what he has done. I'm not going to claim I watch darts every day. Everybody knows football is my game, but it has been quite an electrifying couple of days. And I'm a big believer in 16-year-olds being able to express their views, have their vote, and win darts tournaments. I thought he did brilliantly. I think everybody's incredibly proud of him as a 16-year-old, with real composure, actually, as well. I mean, you know, to do that on that stage in that way, just up the road from me in Ali Pali, was quite phenomenal, I thought. Thank you, Chris. Sophie from the Mirror.
Thanks, Keir. Sophie Huskisson from The Mirror.
So that was Keir Starmer. Do you think Mike Parry thought Luke, the 16-year-old, actually won it?
Luke Littler, who was runner-up in the World Championships, and Keir Starmer, who admittedly said, I don't watch darts. Well, if you don't watch darts, you shouldn't talk about it in a manner which suggested to all of us that the 16-year-old Luke Littler had won the tournament. He didn't. It was another Luke who won the tournament, I'm afraid.
We are talking to just after 11 o'clock.
Exactly.
Come on,
You're a bit harsh, you two, aren't you?
I think they're being a bit harsh. I mean,
Scarlett, he actually said win tournaments. 16-year-olds who win tournaments.
He does win. He wins a lot of tournaments. He lost last night, and what he said is that which is absolutely true, is he is an amazing 16-year-old, right? Who lost. But, I mean, the fact that he lost so narrowly.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other guy, obviously, the other Luke, who you are going to talk to.
We are going to
who
talk
I
to.
think
10 minutes.
sounds completely wonderful.
He does. He
does. But actually, the fact that he went...
Amazing.
Incredible.
And I think, ironically, Mike, the headlines that are going to come out of the speech this morning will be what he said about darts.
A darts player. I totally agree.
Taxes.
And honestly, what a condemnation of a leader of the opposition if the only line the scribes, as we are, can get out of it is talking about a 16-year-old darts player, erroneously, and not about a political policy.
This is too of saying something, isn't it? Because, I mean, you've been advising politicians speeches for years, Scott. You would think all the time, what's the clip, what's the headline, what are they going to get at? What would be the headline out of that speech so far?
Well, the headline is we're going to clean up politics. We're going to make a difference. We're going to make it. Britain will be different.
It was Project Hope, wasn't it? Is what he said. Project Hope was his quote.
And it was, you know, let's, instead of saying, look, if we get in, we're not going to be able to do amazing stuff. If we get in, we will actually.
But if you're struggling to heat your home this winter and struggling with your food bill because of food inflation is still over 6%, what's he said there that's going to make you think, I'm just going to vote for him?
No, but I mean...
Well, what is he? What was there? What was there for that family?
The point is that you have to be able to make speeches about a lot of different things.
I'll ask you again. What was there for that family struggling to pay their heating
saying
bill?
that actually, if we clean up Westminster, politics will be better. And then if we clean up Westminster, you don't have somebody who goes in to make £60 million profit on a £200 million thing.
But Scarlett, you will know better than me that the starting end for John Major was when he invented a campaign called Back to Basics, which meant absolutely nothing.
That was about
No, that's when everybody realised John Major hasn't got an idea in his head. Right. What does he mean? And that was the end of John Major. And I think this could be a turning point for Keir Starmer.
We've got a £100 billion benefits bill for people who could be in work, of working-age people at the moment. He needs to tell us how he's going to bring down that benefits bill whilst not letting those people who need support fall through the net.
Hold on, but you have no idea whether these people could be working. A lot of them, an awful lot of them are long-term sick. A lot of them are waiting on NHS waiting lists.
Exactly. So why does he tackle that? So tell us how he's going to tackle it. Right, we've got to move on. Who thought a Keir Starmer speech could give rise to such debate? Now, Hale Humphries, Cool Hand Luke, wins the crown for Britain at the Darts Championship. All that after the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst some central parts will have some decent dry, if not sunny weather around, there's showers towards the north and in the south. An area of low pressure is going to push its way in as we go through the rest of today, bringing some wet but also blustery weather. It's the heavy rain that's most likely to cause some impacts across southern counties as we go through the afternoon into the evening. There's the risk of some flooding and also some travel disruption here. Like I said, further north though, some dry weather across central parts and across parts of Scotland, northern England, plenty of showers to watch out for, perhaps some more persistent rain for eastern Scotland. Temperatures near normal for the time of year, may just about scrape into double figures somewhere towards the south. As we go through this evening and overnight, more rain then across southern and southeastern parts, pushing into East Anglia, perhaps Lincolnshire too, so could cause some further problems here. But that rain does gradually clear away towards the east. Elsewhere, still a scattering of showers, mainly towards the west, and some clear skies in between any showers. And under these, it could turn a little chilly, perhaps a touch of frost in some places, and also some pockets of fog first thing tomorrow morning. Through tomorrow itself, though, any rain lingering in the east clears away. However, across eastern parts of Scotland, some persistent rain for a time, perhaps some sleet for Shetland. Elsewhere, a scattering of showers again, most likely towards western parts, though Northern Ireland, western Scotland seeing some decent, bright, if not sunny weather. Temperatures perhaps a touchdown compared to today, most places staying in single figures.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, up next, we're very excited about it. Luke Humphries, the world darts champion. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News, People's Channel. Don't miss that interview.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 4th of January. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning to you. Luke Humphries, any minute now, we're going to be talking to the man who beat the pressure cooker of Ali Pali and walked away with £500,000. How did he do it? And what does it mean to him? We will find out.
And Starmer's strategy. Did you listen? What did you think? Keir Starmer made a major speech today, went on rather a long time, and he said he's going to seek to defeat the Tories' entire way of doing politics. Our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, has more, if she stayed awake.
Yes, Keir Starmer laid out his vision for Britain today. It was more about what the Tories are than what Labour are. Let's find out what voters think very soon.
And the Epstein files. Prince Andrew has been named in newly released court documents detailing connections with the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
And fat cat pay. Bosses of Britain's biggest companies will earn more by 1 p.m. today than the typical worker will earn all year. Hard work should surely be rewarded, but has the gap between the haves and the have-nots got out of control?
Let us know your thoughts on that Keir Starmer speech, which we eviscerated.
It's too long.
Oh, it's disappointing.
No specifics. We're only months away potentially from a general election. You've got to tell us more, Keir. Show us a bit of ankle.
Right, gbviews@gbnews.com is the email address. Lots more to come this morning. First, though, here's your very latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. Your top stories from the GB Newsroom. Prince Andrew, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton are among over 150 people named in US court documents detailing connections to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The unsealed files were part of a civil lawsuit against Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting underage girls for him. Many of those named are not accused of any wrongdoing. The document also includes an allegation by Johanna Sjoberg claiming the Duke of York touched her inappropriately in 2001. More documents are expected to be unsealed or unredacted in the coming days. The Labour leader says he's ready for a general election, promising to stand up for working people. Sir Keir Starmer's urging voters to reject what he calls pointless populist gestures as he seeks to set himself apart from Rishi Sunak. During his New Year's speech, he also said the character of politics will change if Labour enters power, adding the country faces a year of choice.
I didn't expect a front row seat on this Tory performance art, a song and dance for your political attention, because they find performing so much easier than the hard graft of practical achievement. No. I came into politics to serve, to get things done, to strive each and every day to make a difference to the lives of working people.
NHS bosses have been accused of undermining the junior doctors' strike by calling them back to work. More than 20 requests have been made by hospitals in England for staff to return because of extreme pressure and patient safety fears. The British Medical Association has accused NHS bosses of bowing to political pressure. None of the requests have been granted so far. A 6-day walkout, the longest in NHS history, began yesterday in a long-running dispute over pay. A man has been arrested and remains in custody after multiple gunshots were fired in Liverpool last night. A 49-year-old was arrested on suspicion of possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life and robbery. Police said it received reports of shots coming from a shop and further incidents outside a cinema and nearby property in Croxteth and Norris Green areas of the city. No one was injured in any of the incidents. The number of people putting their homes up for sale hit a record high on Boxing Day. Property website Rightmove said just over 10,000 new properties came onto the market, the biggest number of people selling since 2011. The number of buyers contacting estate agents about homes for sale also jumped and was 17% higher than on Boxing Day in 2022. Luke Littler says he has what it takes to return to win the World Championship in the future after he missed out on a historic win last night. The teenage darts sensation lost to the new world #1 Luke Humphries, who beat him 7-4. It's a landmark success for Humphries, who now has won 4 of the last 5 major tournaments. Littler said the last few weeks are beyond what he imagined.
I wanted to win one game, come back after Christmas, and that was it. That's the only goals I set, so this is just a massive bonus. No one likes losing, and I've not really lost much, but to lose on that stage, you can't be angry at yourself.
The number of electric cars on UK roads is expected to hit the 1 million mark this month. The RAC says more than 967,000 vehicles were licensed at the end of November, up from 674,000 the year before. It said it's a major milestone, but stressed it needs to keep in perspective as electric vehicles only make up about 3% of all cars. And dramatic scenes were caught on camera inside a courtroom in Las Vegas as a convict launched a vicious attack. The judge was about to give her decision on the sentence of convicted felon Deborah Redden when he ran up to the bench and jumped over the furniture to assault her. Shocking footage for those watching on television. He leaps over her desk, grabbing her by the hair and pulling her to the ground when security quickly sprung into action to restrain him and drag him away. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now back to Andrew and Bev.
Very good morning, it's 11:06. We are waiting on tenterhooks to talk to Luke Humphries, the world darts champion from last night. And before we just go to Luke, let's have a look at what some of you were saying about Keir Starmer's very boring speech.
It's too long.
Disappointing.
Why don't they just make a short speech with about 8 bullet points, soundbite? This is what we'll do, and this is why the Tories or whatever are no good. And sit down.
Yeah, this is what we want, and this is how we're going to do it. Oh, I'm sorry, viewers.
We can go straight to the new darts champion of the world, who is, of course, Luke Humphries, who won a sensational victory at Ali Pali last night and joins us now. Luke, morning champion. How does it feel to be the world champion?
Incredible. You know, it's something I've obviously dreamed of for many, many years. And, you know, to go out and do it last night in such emphatic fashion, you know, it's so pleasing for me. You know, worked incredibly hard for this moment, and you know, to go on and win in my first world final is, you know, an amazing feat.
How nerve-wracking was it?
The way I played, I didn't show much nerves, and I didn't feel many nerves. Only, you know, the double to win the title. Obviously, if you know, my hand was shaking a little bit, the heart was pounding. I expected that was going to be the case when you know, got a shot at a double to win a world title, but you know, it did come out of my hand lovely the second dart, and you know, I managed to hold the nerves in pretty well.
Luke, it sounded a bit when you walked out as though the crowd were booing you, as though you'd been cast as the pantomime villain because of all of this attention on Luke Littler being 16 years old. Did it feel like that in the stadium?
No, I thought the crowd were fantastic. Of course, you know, the fairy tale was for Luke Littler to win, and you know, I think that they all would have loved to have seen him win because it was a fairy tale story. But you know, I thought the crowd were fantastic. They allowed the game to flow, allowed us both to be at the best of our ability, and you know, we put on one of the great world finals there's been, and it was you know, a privilege to be a part of it.
And you've put what world darts is now really on the international map, isn't it? Because everybody's talking about it, everybody's talking about you, and for what it's worth, Luke, we both wanted you to win.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the sport is growing to emphatic levels, you know, especially with what Luke Littler's done this year, this sort of tournament. But yeah, you know, we've got a young world champion, you know, a young prospect in Luke. I think it was the youngest combined age in a world final ever. The sport's growing to massive heights, and you know, I feel like, you know, I've got to be the flag bearer for the sport now and carry my way throughout the PDC and, you know, work hard and try and achieve more.
And you are doing that, but yet again, we're talking about Luke Littler. I want to talk about you, Luke Humphries, because you've had your own remarkable journey, haven't you, to get here? You said last night in your post-match speech how actually you struggled with depression and anxiety so badly at one point that it was affecting your darts.
Yeah, it did affect my darts, and you know, I did go through some adversity 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, there were times where, you know, I didn't feel like this was going to be a possibility. I felt like being a professional dart player, it wasn't going to work out for me, but I battled through them problems. You know, there's lots of people out there that struggle, and I think they'll look at this sort of story and be, you know, inspired by it because, you know, obviously I believe that.
How did you get through it, Luke? Was there somebody in particular that helped you through it? Perhaps family or your girlfriend?
No, myself. I did it all myself. I learned to realise the triggers of what was, you know, affecting me, and I battled through them. And you know, obviously with the help of my family and friends and stuff like that, and you know, they all helped me through it. They really did. And I pay homage to them for helping me through the the hard times.
You got mentally fit and you got really physically fit because you lost a ton of weight, didn't you? How did you do that? It's January. A lot of people are watching this and thinking they've got a few pounds to lose after Christmas. How did you manage it?
I just did it, the most natural way is to eat a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and work out a little bit. You don't have to exercise incredible amounts. I was doing like half an hour on an exercise bike every day, and just eating clean. Eating the right foods, and if you put your mind to it and believe you're going to do it, then you can. And it was definitely something in the back of my mind that I've always wanted to do, and it was the catalyst to my success. It really was.
Wow.
When this championship started, did you think for a second, Luke, that you would end up as the champion of the world at 28?
There was a little part of me inside that said this is possibility, because obviously I was the pre-tournament favourite. Everyone sort of expected this outcome in a way. So yeah, there was a little part of me that believed this could be true, but then there's a little party that thinks, it's a dream, it can never happen to you, but it can, and it did. So yeah.
It still to me feels a little unfair that on the morning after your amazing victory, the front pages have still got Luke Littler. They've got the guy who lost on the front pages this morning. Did that sting a little?
I've not looked at the front pages. To me, there's nothing else that matters in the media. I've got what I wanted right here, the world champion, the world trophy. So regardless of what on the front pages, I'm not in this game for the fame or to be on the front pages of newspapers. I'm, in it to be multiple world champion, and I got my first there, so nothing else matters to me.
Good for you.
And what next for you, Luke? The world is your oyster. You're the champion of the world. There'll be agents clamouring for your services. You're a good-looking bloke. You're very talented. You're world champion at 28. What next?
I'm not really sure. Obviously it's important for me now to work hard and try and achieve more. I'd love to go on and create a massive legacy for myself to be, one of the greatest dart players that's ever been. Obviously I've achieved everything that is possible. World #1, world champion, major champion. There's a lot of things that's still left to achieve, but I've achieved the most gracious things I can in this sport. So now it's important for me, to dedicate, work hard, carry myself in an importantly good manner for the PDC, because, I'm the flag bearer for the sport, and I'm really looking forward to, what's going to be a very, very busy 2024 for me.
And you've got a baby and you've got a stepdaughter as well. Now, if I won £500,000 last night, I can promise you my daughter, who looks about the same age as yours, would have a shopping list handed to me this morning of what she wants. How do you manage it within the family and keep the kids' feet on the ground?
Yeah, well, we've just had Christmas, so, it's hard to start giving out more presents, but, my stepdaughter is amazing, though. She doesn't expect anything, but obviously I'll treat her to more things because, long as she works hard at school, she'll get the rewards. And, I'm really, really strict on, making sure she does work hard at school. And, she'll obviously get a present, but it's important not to, over spoil her because, I think she's overwhelmed by the whole scenario. This is new to her, just as it is new to me. But, yeah, we're all going to enjoy it as a family, and we're really all proud as a whole group.
Luke, are you planning a celebration?
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. I mean, next week I'm going to go back to my hometown in Newbury and, go to the Crucible Club, which is my local club near me, and have all my friends and family there that have, supported me over the years and give back to them. Because it's important to remember your roots, the people that were there for you at the start. So I'm going to make sure that, I get to see all them and celebrate with them. Because, it's important to share them incredible moments of the people that always believed you were going to be world champion and world #1. And there's many people that did say it.
I bet a big crowd's going to turn out to see you when you go back to Newbury, Luke.
Yeah, there's going to be quite a few people that are going to want to see me. And it's going to be quite a busy night for me. But, I've got a lot of commitments to do and a lot of commitments to fulfill. But that's definitely a commitment that I want to fulfill is, seeing all my friends and family, in one room, we'll celebrate all together.
I think as well, I found so moving last night, and you'll be pleased to know, Luke, for the first time I watched a whole darts match from start to finish, and I paid my $11.99 to Sky to be able to get that darts pass. It's seeing the culmination of years of commitment to a sport from young people, and you are still young at 28. I know Luke is spectacularly young at 16, but do you hope that you inspire that next generation to get them off their screens and get them at the oche and throwing those darts over and over again? How do you keep that momentum going?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've learned, especially, with my stepdaughter, kids love to be glued to their iPads and their phones. Put your iPad, put your phone down, ask mum and dad for a dartboard. Get on that dartboard, and you never know what can happen. You know, you could be like me, the world champion. You could be the next world champion. You know, so you know, it's important that kids, you know, do more fun activities, and you know, darts is growing massively, and if you want to be a part, then you can be. It's a growing sport, and I think in the next 10 years it's going to grow to unprecedented levels.
How old were you when you started playing?
I think I was about 11 or 12 when I first started throwing properly, but I won a singles title my first ever year at 13 in the men's division. I think that's when a lot of people sort of thought there was a talent there, and then obviously, you know, I generally slowly got myself up, you know, the rankings in, you know, the lower levels, and then got my tour card, and it's been, you know, an upwards rise since then.
Is it the kind of sport where you'll know straight away if your kid picks up the dart and has a go, you'll know instantly whether they're talented or not? Or is it the kind of thing that you genuinely can learn to do to a world-class level?
Yeah, I mean, there is some sort of ability or some sort of natural talent involved in being a good dart player. But there's nothing to say with hard work and dedication that you can't, you know, be great without having that ability. You know, there's many players that, you know, have had to work harder than others to get where they are. But, you know, even if you're not going to be, you know, a professional dart player, it's a great sport just to play as a hobby. You know, it's fun. I think, like you said, you managed to watch the whole game last night and got yourself glued on it, and you're loving watching now. So, you know, it's a great hobby to be involved in if it's not going to be a professional level as well.
Is training literally just stood at the board, throwing darts over and over again? Because you think about tennis players do different things, swimmers will do some land work and some water work. Are you just stood there all day? How many hours a day are you doing that for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more harder work than just throwing darts. You know, there's practice routines that you do to, you know, if you're just throwing at a dartboard, you have to do practice routines and stuff. It's not as easy as that. But you know, I used to practice a lot longer than I do now. You know, I play a lot, so you know, the days that I'm not playing, I like to, you know, spend with my family and not practicing. But if I am practicing, then it's usually about 2 hours a day. But there is other players that practice 6 hours a day. It just all depends on, you know, how much time you have and how much you want to dedicate yourself to the sport.
And I tell you what I realised last night watching it, how bad I am at mental arithmetic. Because are you adding up, Luke? I asked Twitter this last night, like, do you have to be good at mental arithmetic? And actually, people on Twitter said not necessarily.
I think it's sort of a memory thing. I think you know the ways to go. And that's another good thing for young kids if they want to, you know, get into this sport, is that it really does help with your maths.
Yeah.
You know, going back to my stepdaughter, she is incredible at maths, and she loves to stand there at the board and count my scores up and stuff. And you know, it is good for kids with maths and stuff. So you know, obviously it is incredibly important that you know all these routes, you know what you're going for before you throw in. But you know, once you've played this game for a long time, all these sort of routes that you do become a lot easier. It just comes from memory.
Instinctive.
Are you going to have a bit of time off now, or have you got another tournament lined up, world champ?
I've probably got a busy calendar. I've got I think I'm in a pro-am on Saturday in Germany, and I think I'm meeting the Prime Minister tomorrow. He wants to see me, so you know, so I've got some busy things to do.
You're going to number 10 Downing Street?
Yes, I think so. So yeah, that would be an exciting moment for me, and you know, a privilege to be there. So I've got a lot of commitments, so not much time for a relax.
Take your darts board with you, and let's see how good Rishi Sunak is. See if he can hit the bullseye.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes.
That's an exciting invitation. What else has come in so far, Luke? I know it's early days. It's the morning after. I mean, you're still wearing the same shirt you had on last night. I presume you've been to bed.
No, it's not the same shirt.
It looks the same.
It's a different one.
OK, good. But what else is on the cards for you? Because you know what? You're going to start getting I'm a Celebrity maybe for the end of this year, and Celebrity Bake Off, and possibly Strictly Come Dancing, Luke Humphries. Which of those do you think would play to your strengths?
First of all, I'd never have the time to do it because the calendar is so busy, and the World Championships at the end of the year. So unfortunately, that's them sort of things would have to wait until I retire. But you know, it'd be exciting to see what sort of opportunities come my way. You know, I've opened up the possibility now to a lot of things. But you know, if I could pick one thing in the future to do reality-wise, it'd definitely be I'm a Celebrity, because I love watching that. It's quite an incredible show.
How would you be eating kangaroo testicles, Luke?
No comment.
Out of all the weird questions you've had this morning, and no doubt you've had many, I imagine that is top of the list.
Well, congratulations from all of us here at GB News. Well done, champion.
Yeah, well done. Absolutely
Thank
fantastic.
you very much. Thank you so much.
And honestly, as a mum of 3 as well, you are inspiring the next generations, as you say. Get off those screens and go and do some sort of sport. Luke Humphries, fantastic.
The new darts world champion.
Well
Congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Right.
What a nice guy.
Nice guy. No ego, and I love that.
And we speculated, didn't we? Would there be messages from politicians? Not only are there messages from politicians, the Prime Minister's got in there quick as a flash.
Of course he has.
Come and have a cup of tea with me. Be a great photo.
It will be a great photo. Of course he has. And did you hear that? He'd like to go on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
The producers are on the phone all the time.
I imagine they are. But also the fact that he's saying he's not bothered that he's not on the front pages and that none of that will get in the way until he's finished his sporting career.
Yeah, but he's got years ahead of him.
He's a hero. Right, more to come this morning. Fat cat bosses are going to earn more by 1 o'clock today than the typical worker will earn all year. What do you make of that? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
11:24 with Britain's Newsroom and GBNews. Andrew Pearson of 10. We're still on a bit of a high after that fabulous interview with Luke Humphries. What a nice guy. He's going to be a great ambassador for darts, isn't he?
Yeah, aren't we lucky? That was so nice for him to join us this morning.
Now, Prince Andrew is among a number of high-profile figures named in US court documents released today detailing connections with the sex paedophile offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Ghislaine Maxwell told her lawyers that she was worried about being questioned on her relationship with Prince Andrew. We're joined now by former royal correspondent for The Sun, Charles Ray, and our very own royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Charles, let's come to you first of all this morning. None of this is a particular surprise that Prince Andrew is in these documents, but have we learnt anything new?
Yes, we have learned a couple of things new. We certainly have. And I'm not sure how many more nails we can actually put into Prince Andrew's coffin, because there's enough there already. But what we do learn is that there is a lady called Jane Doe 3. She's not named, but she has made a statement in which she claims that Epstein ordered her to have sex with Prince Andrew. So this is a second lady, at least a second lady. And that she had to give him whatever she wants. There's also a statement that he was involved in an underage orgy as well, which doesn't come out terribly well for Andrew, or in fact for our family. We also have confirmation, if you like, from a lady called Joanna Sojerg, who has claimed that she sat on Andrew's lap next to Virginia Giuffre, the lady who claims that she had sex with Prince Andrew. They brought out a spitting image puppet. The puppet's hand was put on the breast of Virginia, and then Joanna says that Andrew's hand was put on her breast. Now, initially in her statement, she said that she was willing to sit on his knee, and she saw nothing wrong with the hand on. I don't know if that's changed at all, but that's what she said at the time. So all of this is just tawdry. But the most important thing is that this is not just a one-day wonder, these documents. They're going to come out on a rolling basis. So we're going to get more and more stuff practically every day. And I should imagine that Prince Andrew is going to be sitting at Windsor Lodge with his head in his hands. Even though he denies all these allegations, they keep coming.
And of course, Charles, he can deny them until he's blue in the face, but we know he paid £12 million to Virginia Giuffre, a woman he claims he didn't meet. And it begs the question again, which we were talking about earlier in the programme, should the King really have had Prince Andrew by his side at Sandringham on Christmas Day?
Well, I listened to Cameron this morning, and I think he was, and I agree with him. There's two sorts to the Windsors. There is the official side of the Windsor, where you won't let Andrew anywhere near anything royal. But there's the family side. Yeah. He's still, despite everything that goes on, he's still a member of the family.
And he loves him. He loves his brother.
And he loves him. Of course he does. He's still a brother. But you would have thought that the King, given these allegations have come out again today, would be having a chat with Andrew and saying things like, you know, what is going on here? You've already denied everything, but they keep coming out. There must be something more to this. You know, what evidence have you got, Andrew?
To defend yourself against these allegations. Cameron, are any of these statements taken from the court testimony evidence of anything that Prince Andrew might have done that was illegal, as opposed to, and I think Charles used the perfect word there, which is just tawdry behaviour?
Well, there's nothing there that we haven't already seen in media articles over the last 6 years since this defamation case between Ghislaine Maxwell, who's Jeffrey Epstein's ex-girlfriend, and Virginia Giuffre, who's Prince Andrew's sex accuser, came out. The difference here is that all of this now is in sworn testimony in court documents, which is a whole nother level in terms of what potentially could come out. Will it persuade alleged other victims to now come forward with new evidence? It's a big headache for Prince Andrew, who has always denied all allegations made against him. As you just alluded to, Andrew, there, of course, he's been seen in public with the King and the royal family on Christmas Day. In the summer, he was photographed with Prince William in a car at Balmoral, driving with the Princess of Wales, although a source close to me has suggested that Prince William was not particularly happy about that particular idea. However, these kind of allegations have clearly haunted Prince Andrew for a number of years now. The most serious, as Charles just said, was to do with Johanna Sjoberg and putting a hand on his breast. Buckingham Palace, her breast even. Buckingham Palace at the time denied those allegations when it came out in media interviews. But of course now it's in written testimony.
Charles, there's absolutely no prospect, is there, that this man is ever going to return to public life in any shape or form? I mean, any time ever.
You and I have got more chance of being King Andrew than he has of becoming a working member of the royal family again, to be perfectly honest. He's finished. There's nothing he can do. Remember when he made his statement on the payment to Virginia Giuffre, he said he was going to dedicate his life to a charity that supported women who were sex trafficked. Well, he hasn't done anything. And I can't believe there's one charity in this world that would want him as a figurehead or anything involved at all with him. The course he should be going down is, if you remember, in 1963, John Profumo, the former war minister in the Christine Keeler affair, he went off and he did charity work. No sign of any publicity. He just went and did it. I don't know if that's possible for Andrew because he's such a well-known figure.
And possibly too lazy, maybe, to do that, if rumours are to be believed. It's not an easy way to live your life, is it? Cameron, we won't expect, I imagine, any statement from the palace about this, as usual.
No, Buckingham Palace no longer represent the Duke of York since he was forced to step back as a working member of the royal family. I have contacted his office. There has been no response so far, but Prince Andrew has lost a lot after all of this, hasn't he? He was stripped of his military titles by Queen Elizabeth II. He's no longer a working member of the royal family, but he is still a member of the Windsor family, which is why perhaps we see him at private family occasions.
Do we ever know where he got that money from to pay his £12 million to his accuser? Was that his personal money?
Not officially. We know he gets a small military pension from his time in the Navy. In terms of any other assets, it's been reported that he sold his Swiss chalet in Switzerland to help pay for that. Of course, he would have got some, as we're allegedly inherited.
But we were never sure how he could afford that in the first place, though,
Yeah.
because it was about £17 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just lots of speculation. Perhaps he got inheritance from the Queen. We just simply don't know.
OK, thank you both, gentlemen. Brilliant. Cameron Walker and Charles Ray. Now, still to come this morning, the spy who offended me. The British Film Institute has warned that James Bond may cause offence. All that womanising, Andrew, all that fraternising.
Don't watch it then. It's easy. Nobody drags people to cinema screens or to their TV screens. Don't complain.
How very old-fashioned of you. All of that and much more after your morning's news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you very much and good morning. 11:32. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. Prince Andrew, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton are among over 150 people named in US court documents detailing connections to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The unsealed files were part of a civil lawsuit against Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting underage girls for him. Many of those named are not accused of any wrongdoing. The document also includes an allegation by Johanna Sjoberg claiming the Duke of York touched her inappropriately in 2001. More documents are expected to be unsealed or unredacted in the coming days. NHS bosses have been accused of undermining the junior doctors' strike by calling them back to work. More than 20 requests have been made by hospitals for their return because of extreme pressure on services. The British Medical Association has criticised the move and in a letter said it has nothing to do with patient safety, suggesting instead that NHS England is bowing to political pressure. None of the requests have been granted so far. The Labour leader says he's ready for a general election, promising to stand up for working people. Sir Keir Starmer is urging voters to reject what he calls pointless populist gestures as he seeks to set himself apart from Rishi Sunak. During his New Year's speech, he also said the character of politics will change if Labour wins power and the country now faces a year of choice. And Luke Littler has maintained high spirits despite losing in the World Darts Championship final, saying he'll come back stronger. 16-year-old Littler lost to the new world #1, Luke Humphries, who beat him 7-4 last night. It's a landmark success for Humphries, who has now won 4 of the last 5 major tournaments. He says he'll donate some of his prize money to Prostate Cancer UK. You can get more on all of those stories by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
For exclusive, limited edition and rare gold coins that are always newsworthy, Rosalind Gold proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2705 and €1.1599. The price of gold, £1,611 and 81 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 at 7,694 points.
Rosalind Gold proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
We're gossiping about Epstein Island. Welcome back.
We can't say on air what we just said off air.
It's Fat Cat Thursday. Britain's biggest bosses apparently earn the typical UK annual salary by 1 o'clock today. Is that right? Just rewarding hard work? Let us know. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Keir, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Very good morning. It's 11:39. You're with Britain's Newsroom and a very nattery Andrew Pearce talking to former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire, and Mike Parry is also here.
I'm trying to find out what she really thinks about Keir Starmer's boring speech, and I think I know what she really thinks. But I think she'll say
Andrew
something
Pearce.
different
Was it off
on
the
air.
record? Was it off the record, Scarlett?
Actually, what we were talking about was the post office
Which
scandal,
is the great scandal.
is, I think, probably all four of us agree.
Great drama, Mr. Bates versus Post
We're
office.
going to talk
Very
about
good.
that in just a moment. But also, I was talking to Mike Parry. He's got a storm injury this morning, Andrew. He came out of his house. What happened, Mike?
Well, I go out every morning at about 6:20 to get my papers, because my newspaper shop's nearby, old-fashioned, you know, you can handle newspapers. And I know the road intimately, so I'm looking at my phone, walking along, and bang, straight in my face, a branch had split off the tree, and I walked straight into it, and the medical lady has done a bit of... But at first, I thought I'd been stung by a bee. It was that, you know, it was that...
Shock.
What was that? You know what I mean? But it got me. But anyway, there we are.
But Mike, you're very on trend and young to be walking around looking at your phone. Some of us wouldn't dare.
Yeah, well, you may be right. Yeah.
Well, right, let's talk about this Fat Cat Britain story, Mike. You think this might be good news? Bosses at Britain's biggest companies will have earned more by lunchtime, 1 o'clock today, than the average earner in this country. Put some flesh on the bones of this. Have you got the numbers?
You've got the numbers, yeah. Now, the FTSE, that's a FTSE, chief executive, average chief executive at the top, now takes home £3.81 million, which is over...
Nearly 4 million.
3.81 million, nearly 4 million, which is over 109 times more than the average salary in this country, which is, I think, a quite respectable 34,963. But the reason I like this story is because for years I've been against those people who think profit is a dirty word. Yeah. Profit is not a dirty word. Profit means that the business you're running is successful. That means you can employ other people. And I, despite economists trying to knock it down all the time, believe sincerely in trickle-down economics.
But is it trickling down enough?
Yes,
is it trickling down too slowly rather than perhaps gushing down?
No, I don't think it is, because I think then you've got economic turbulence if it flows down. When you start trying to gerrymander the economy and take wealth off some people and give it to others, it goes completely wrong if you do it as a social engineering.
It's what's called taxation, actually.
Yeah, but it's social engineering to take money off people who've acquired it and give it to those who don't deserve it.
Can you believe Scarlett Maguire just talked about taxation when the Labour leader refuses to say if he's going to raise taxes, cut taxes, he will tell us nothing about
what I'm
taxes.
saying is taxation is about redistribution. I mean that's what Liz Truss was against. But it's about redistribution. Is the more you earn, the more you pay in tax, so that people who don't earn...
Anyway.
I'm saying Mike's saying that this is wrong, and I'm saying this
taxation is to keep society going.
Yes.
It's not to take money off rich people and give it to poor people, because that incentivises poor people. So that's what I don't like about it. What I like about trickle-down economics is that if I've got a £3 million house, I need a gardener, I need somebody to wash my Rolls-Royce, I need somebody to build a new extension.
God,
and if I want a swimming pool, I'll bring in a swimming pool company.
Well,
that's trickle-down economics.
It would be really nice, Mike, if we paid people properly.
We do.
No.
34,000 average wage.
If we have carers who are put on the minimum wage, and they're put on the minimum wage, and then they're not paid for their travel, right? And these people are highly skilled. They might not be people who want to earn millions of pounds, but they people who want... And that's the problem with this country, is that actually we don't reward the people who work a lot. And a lot of people, company directors... Directors of water companies and things like that earn an awful lot of money for failing.
Do you like, Scarlett, do you like Reform UK's policy of not paying any tax until you earn £20,000?
The problem with that is that public services go under.
But you know, they don't get that much tax for people who earn under £20,000. It's a very small part of the pot of revenue.
So all of us should contribute to public services, because public services. No, actually,
I don't think a cleaner on 11 quid an hour working a few days a week because she or he likes to just do a job. I don't think they should be paying any tax at all until they earn £20,000. I want them to be incentivised to go to work and not go, well, I'll have a bit of benefits and I'll do a bit of work. I love that policy.
Labour used to be on the side of the workers.
I am on the side of the workers. I'm absolutely on the side of the workers. I've just said that I think that people, that there are an awful lot of workers, particularly people in the care sector, who are not paid properly. And that's what's wrong with this.
Take them out of the tax.
Take them out of the tax.
No, because actually, who pays for the care sector? It's taxes. And the
but they shouldn't have to pay the taxes on it. I think Andrew's right. And also, we haven't discussed the welfare system in this country, which is bloated and very generous to millions of people. Between 2 and 5 million people in this country are economically inactive. And any government, including Keir Starmer's, should make a pledge to get these people back into work.
Every government makes that pledge. And the people who are economically inactive, you will find can't get work, right?
Or don't want work.
Scarlett, there's a million jobs out there. We've got a labour shortage.
They've got long-term health problems.
They may have,
as I said earlier, a lot of them are sitting waiting for operations.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, it's all very well for us to say, oh, everything's fine, but actually, if you are in pain, you can't work.
I agree.
Right, and it gets worse.
But we've redefined what sickness is in this country so dramatically. We've lowered the bar to a level which is so low now. Oh, yes, you are sick. You were never sick 10 years ago with the same complaint.
Because often now it's your
there
mental
is
health.
no-
Of course it is. They say
health.
it's mental health. What's the difference?
There's no evidence for that whatsoever.
I believe there is. The numbers have gone up, and we know that, so more people are claiming, more people are inactive, and that's because, as Andrew quite rightly says, we've redefined some of the physical difficulties people have. But there's a dividing line between a mental health problem and having a bad day.
Yes, and having a bad day you don't get paid for.
Right, I really want us to go... We've got 3 more brilliant stories I want to tackle. Record number of homeowners, Scarlett, put their houses on the market on Boxing Day. Why?
Well, I mean, nobody knows. And Bev, as you say, when we were all fair, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Is they're looking and they're thinking, we just can't afford this mortgage anymore. Can we downsize?
Or is the marriage over?
Well, the thing
difficult Christmas.
It does happen.
But difficult Christmases have been going on forever, right? What's interesting is that last year there was a record, and this year we've broken the record. And why are people putting their houses on the market? It's not necessarily a good thing.
This is 10,000 houses in the UK. It's 26% up on last year, Mike. The property industry are taking this as good news. People feel that they want to move and make changes and buy houses.
I'll tell you what's happening in the property market. Now, I am a property investor, and I was thinking about offloading a couple of houses last year, and I decided that the market was starting to go down, so I pulled back. What's happened is there's been a raft of advice to property owners over Christmas and New Year that it's going to keep going down. And I think some of this is people saying, right, get in now before we lose more value in the house. That's what's happening.
How many houses have you got, this is bad news, actually.
It's a portfolio.
How many houses have you got, Mike Perry? Come on, I want to know an answer.
Well, not really, because I can't tell you, because it's too complicated. It's a portfolio, and the numbers differ.
And yet you can't afford a paper boy. Still goes out in the morning and buys his own paper.
If this story about people uploading these properties at a time when we've seen on the front page of the Merchant and the Telegraph Times everywhere, mortgages are tumbling again.
Yes,
because the mortgage applications are so low.
Yeah, but the problem is some of the people who are getting rid of the houses touch on the point that you just made. They're locked into long-term mortgage deals, which they can't get out of unless they sell the house.
They all thought was so brilliant because people didn't realise that interest rates go down. They also go up.
I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, I'm sorry, Scott, to interrupt you there, but a lot of these houses were bought when interest rates were literally below 1%. And you never think the day is going to come when your £800 a month mortgage suddenly turns into £3,000.
Extraordinary.
And what's happened is that these are people who are locked into 3 or 5 year mortgages, and they're coming up now. So actually, they've managed to be on very low mortgages.
Yes, you're right.
And now they think, we're going to have to do something.
And that is also a factor in the time of the election, because there was another report the other day suggesting a lot of mortgages will be coming up for renewal at the end of October.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
which around the time the Tories might be thinking of an election, and the mortgages could be going through the roof again. These are all factors for Rishi Sunak in time of the election. And of course, he'll be quaking in his boots after that devastatingly effective speech by your hero, Keir Starmer.
I'm sure
he will. And he might be quaking in his boots if he watches a James Bond film, because we're now being told by the British Film Institute in London that James Bond movies have to have a warning that says, will cause offence today. Are you offended by a handsome, white, middle-class, young man?
I'm offended by the warning.
Honestly, and do you know the worst part of this report? It's the British Film Institute.
Ridiculous.
But part of it says the warning of her after 1960 films also claims that as well as being offensive now, it was offensive then in the 60s. No, I lived in the 60s.
Yeah.
I can tell you I was not offended to see James Bond assuming the identity of an Oriental person because he was working in Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ludicrous.
Was that Dr. No? The very first one?
No, it was Live and Let Die.
You're right.
Sometimes,
it was
though,
the
just going to play devil's advocate here, Scarlett, but sometimes when you do watch James Bond, it does slightly take my breath away how sexually predatory he was with women in a way,
agree.
which he was in a way
I totally agree.
shocking.
It was part of the film. There is one scene in Goldfinger which even I found offensive then, and Goldfinger is playing cards in Miami, and James Bond is being massaged by a beautiful young woman, and then the FBI guy turns up. Hi James, and James Bond smacks the girl on the bum and says, "That's all now, dear. We've got men's work to talk about." And even I in those days thought that was a bit saucy.
But does that require a warning, though?
No, but what the problem is, so I mean, we know this is that kids brought up now just aren't used to, and I mean, they find friends difficult, right? Yeah, because it's
bland.
So I mean, I have to say that as a feminist, I did find James Bond difficult, even back then. And all they're saying is this was made at a different time. There were different mores.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's fine.
I'm okay with that. And I want my children to see a time when, if I was sat here with Andrew Pierce, he could smack my bottom on the way out.
Yes.
Absolutely. The world was a freer place. But the cultural appropriation is so ridiculous, because there's a great film I love called Where Eagles Dare, OK?
I love that film.
Right, so do I, and it was on over Christmas.
McLean.
No, exactly. So is Richard Burton then going to be accused of appropriating being a German soldier because he was wearing a German uniform to infiltrate the Germans?
German accent, actually. Very bad German accent.
Come on, I remember a time when, if you were going to have a person who was Indian or cowboys and Indians, that sort of thing, you'd have white people dressed up. And actually, it just meant that people of colour were just never getting parts.
Yeah.
And it's changed. And actually, we wouldn't do it now.
Yeah.
We wouldn't cast Othello as a white guy. We would always cast him as a black guy. Can I say the first black person to play Othello, the reviews said, black people can't do it. It was incredible.
Really? Can't act.
But their voice is
extraordinary.
But with the actor, there have to be a black person.
Yes, well...
You have to be a black person to play Othello. You think you've got to be black?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Right.
I do. I mean, I think it's fine.
But why do so many black people then play overtly white characters?
Like who?
Well, I just watched the other day the film about Mary, Queen of Scots, and her economic advisor was very, very black. Unlikely in that part of Scotland.
Very unlikely in that part of Scotland in those days.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if you're making a film about Muhammad Ali, you have a black guy playing the boxer, don't you? Was Othello originally a black person?
Well, I mean, the whole point about the Shakespeare thing, I mean, if you read Othello, he was black.
Exactly, so that's what I'm saying. So that means it should be a black person playing it for reality purposes,
I mean, The Famous Five was redone on the BBC this Christmas, and George, who was always a little bit, let's face it, gender ambiguous, even in the original.
She was a complete tomboy. I, being a tomboy myself, I thought George was great.
But isn't in this recent iteration, isn't she a mixed race. Gender ambiguous boy / girl, I think.
Spinning in a grave.
Well, I think Enid Blyton...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Enid Blyton was... I have a complete Enid Blyton fan who's read every book.
I love the Famous Five and the
she
Secret
is
Seven.
Deeply racist, if you read...
She was a product of her 40s, 50s, wasn't she? Very much so.
The ones that get me is if you get something like a 1930s Yorkshire village, and a vet. I don't think it's ever happened in All Creatures Great and Small. And all of a sudden you go in the pub and there's black people there. There weren't black people in Yorkshire villages in 1930, you know what I mean? And that's when they tried too hard to restore a gender balance. A racial balance.
And it stands out because it's
what
so
we want,
obviously
really,
wrong.
you want drama which reflects all
Actually, that's why Bridgerton was so good, because they explained.
We've got to move on. We've had a great show this morning. Thank you so
Right.
much for joining us. Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you, Mike. That is it from Britain's Newsroom. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. We'll see you on Monday.
See you then.
Dramatic developments in the United States affecting us here in the UK. What has been revealed in Jeffrey Epstein's court documents, all to be revealed.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst some central parts will have some decent dry, if not sunny weather around, there's showers towards the north and in the south. An area of low pressure is going to push its way in as we go through the rest of today, bringing some wet but also blustery weather. It's the heavy rain that's most likely to cause some impacts across southern counties as we go through the afternoon into the evening. There's the risk of some flooding and also some travel disruption here. Like I said, further north though, some dry weather